Welcome, beautiful people of all ages, shapes, and colors, to another episode of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, where we encourage you to stick to the basics. I'm on your co-host TV, aka TV on basketball, alongside my co-host Jay, aka the Knockdown Jay. How's it going, my guy?
Chilling, man. 2 for 1 this week, so we got a lot of content for the NBA this week's edition of the podcast. So a lot to get into, obviously, and man, dog days of the NBA for sure. Because I mean, the league is feeling it.
I mean, it is the daughters of the NBA, but man, have we had a week of basketball in terms of highlights, in terms of just some of the best stuff that happened this season, all happened in this week of basketball. So there's a lot to talk about still. We're gonna discuss one of our videos on our TikTok as well. So we're gonna get into that in this episode. We said it was gonna be top 5 underrated players, but we're gonna call this the TV and J All-Star team, where we have each of us have our team of under the radar players. We're gonna talk about that as well, and of course we have the draft, we have the quiz as well. It's gonna be another great episode for y'all. But before we get into that, we do have to plug our socials. Remember to follow our individual socials at TV on Basketball, at The Routine Jumper. Those links will be found in the description down below. In terms of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, for the best daily NBA content, follow TikTok and Instagram. We have clips. We got we have the different series that we're doing on over there. NBA news, all that stuff can be found over there. In terms of the YouTube, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. That would be highly appreciated. And if you're listening on any of the podcast networks, Spotify or Apple, we do appreciate your support. Subscribe, leave a review. That really does help us out. Jay, are you ready to get into this?
Yeah, man. Sounds like the street said you got some explaining to do.
I do have some explaining to do, because we're gonna peel back the curtain a little bit. Because if you have been following the Hit Your Free Throws podcast for, I would say, since the beginning of the season, you know that my yearly NBA weekly power rankings has been moved from TV on Basketball to the Hit Your Free Throws podcast page. And I had to post mine this week. And in the comments, someone did explain, saying that my power rankings basically was reflective of the top 10 players in the league by standings, by record. So I'm gonna throw it over to Jade. What, like, when you, because you're the one who brought this up, like, what were your thoughts on this when you first saw this comment?
Well, TV, before we get into thoughts or anything, I think the first two things that you should do, actually, and this is not me trying to deflect anything, but I think this is one of those, I'm not going to say you should carry the segment, but I think it's important because the fact that this is the first time we've ever actually taken a real look at your power rankings. We don't do power rankings on this podcast. So it'll be interesting to keep that in mind for future seasons, or maybe, doing a monthly update between the two of us. But you're the one who typically does this on a week-to-week basis. So I think there's two things that I would say. The first thing is, for people who haven't been able to keep up with the TikTok, please keep up with the TikTok. By the way, Hit Your Free Throws Pod on TikTok and Instagram, like you mentioned before. But if people are not up to date with the TikTok, first off, share what your most recent power ranking is. And then number two, I think you should share your philosophy a little bit, because it makes it a little bit easier for people to understand where you were coming from, in a way that, I mean, I can comment on it a little bit, but that's because we had a conversation off pod about your framework. But for those who don't know, I think that will give a little bit of clarity first.
Sure, no problem. So this week's power rankings, I had the Knicks at number 10, I had the Orlando Magic at number 9. I just want to make sure I got this completely right. We had the Cavaliers at number 8, Clippers at 7, Pelicans at 6, Bucks at 5, Timberwolves at 4, Nuggets at 3, OKC Thunder at 2, and the Celtics at 1. Now, if you look at the standings, I'm going to tell you the top 10 in terms of overall record right now. The Magic, the Knicks, the Pelicans, the Cavs, Clippers, Bucks, Timberwolves, Nuggets, and Thunder. And Celtics, my bad. But pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see the confusion in terms of seeing both there. But I do want to reveal to people that I do this on a week-to-week basis, and I keep track of what teams are at the top, what teams are at the bottom, and that's why they move every single week. I don't move it based on record purely. I think record in terms of, and what they've shown us in regular throughout the whole season, is vital in terms of these power rankings. But it also has to do with form. It also has to do with how good I think they are compared to the record. And to be honest, I think the biggest controversial part here, and I think I get this like on a week-to-week basis, is that the Magic are in here quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I respond to this comment. You know what? Maybe looking back at it, maybe I'll remove the Magic, put on the Mavericks. But I do want to especially like talk about why I have like the Magic above the Knicks in this scenario. I've seen this Magic team play quite a bit, and like their record is showing that they are competing with some of the top teams in the East. They have a top five defense. Sure, they don't have a great offense, but they have a clear identity. What the Knicks are going through right now, sure, yes, they're winning, but they have a bunch of injuries at play that are kind of putting them down in the power rankings as different as they were maybe early on in the season. OG Anunoby literally played one game, out again with injury. Julius Randle has been out for a while. Mitchell Robinson's been out for a while. They've been winning, and kudos to them. But I do think like that when in comparison with the Orlando Magic now compared to maybe what it was before, I think it's more of a competition now, especially because the Orlando Magic are staying healthy. They got their two lead guys back now that Franz Wagner's back from injury, and now they're kind of on a level playing field. And I don't want to discredit the Magic for the great season they've had. While the Knicks, yes, they've had some peaks and valleys ever since the injuries happened, but the Magic have had maybe overall like good form over the last like 3 or 4 weeks. And then basically for the rest of the power rankings, you got, the Pelicans moving up. Maybe some people might be confused with the Pelicans over the Clippers. The Clippers are struggling to find an identity right now. The Pelicans are on the hottest streak of their season. They've been like one of the better teams over the past 2 or 3 weeks. So they've been figuring things out while the Clippers, ever since they lost Russell Westbrook to injury, have struggled to find their identity. In this situation, maybe here right now, I feel more confident in the Pelicans' ability to maybe go into a playoffs than they do the Clippers, but they're also just playing better than the Clippers at the moment. And the 7 game series might be a little bit different, but I still think it's pretty competitive. I think they're kind of neck and neck. The Thunder being above the Nuggets, kind of kind of the same deal. Maybe the Nuggets will be considered the number one team in the West by many people, and I I see your point there. That is like a valid point. But the Thunder have been showing that they're not just winning against some of the bad teams in the league. In terms of teams over 500, they're doing just as good business as like any team out there. I think they have the best record against teams over 500 in the entire league right now in terms of winning percentage. So there's like some like little things you can nitpick here and there, but overall these power rankings are just a mixture of what you would see, on in terms of like the best teams in the league, but also you got to think of form. You got to think of like what teams look like now, momentum, especially going to the postseason. We're gonna talk probably like later on down the road about the postseason, like where we see these teams, like if they're legit contenders or not. We're gonna probably talk about that down the line, but on a week to week basis, you got to look at like a lot of things, and maybe some power rankings don't take form into form as much as like me here, but I still think in terms of the majority of this top 10, it's pretty accurate in terms of like where the contendership status is. The top teams in the league. I mean, the Boston Celtics have been number one for a while, and it's really hard to see if the Celtics are going to be dethroned. But at the end of the day, like it's all up to um like kind of like my vision of things. Some people are going to agree, disagree. I don't really mind about that, but that's just kind of like how I like to think of the power rankings, and that's how kind of like my mindset as I talked about here.
Okay. I mean, yeah. I mean, to me, I don't really. I mean, from our conversation, I completely understand where you're coming from in terms of just organizing it based off the fact that you're not trying to do it as a traditional power rankings of just who is going to be the best in the playoffs, considering the fact that I feel like you would just end up having a pretty similar construct every single week if you just went based off who you had the most confidence in going into a postseason. I do think that does need to become a little bit more important as we get to this part of the season, though. For example, I think you mentioned the momentum that the Orlando Magic are playing with as of right now in comparison to a New York Knicks team. I still would question whether or not I trust the Orlando Magic more in a 7 game series going into the postseason as currently constructed right now because,
Yeah, I know what you mean, but I mean like the current Knicks right now, I would definitely have more confidence in them with at least an OG back. I mean, he only played like one game ever since and then went back to injury protocol. But like they're missing a bunch of guys. The Magic are as healthy as they've been all season, so I think it's kind of like where you see both teams are right now, and if he is if OG and stuff is available, maybe that's like a different case. But just like again, just pointing back to current to see like why I have the Knicks as low as I have and all that.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't even think they're the only ones where I think like I know that they're probably the ones that stand out. Or you mentioned the idea of like the Phoenix Suns not being on the list, right? Like I don't even necessarily feel as though I disagree with that take either, right? The
Yeah,
idea that if you had to go into a 7 game series right now, like are the Phoenix Suns a team that you're very like you feel very highly about? Um, you have to wonder about that because of the fact that their two most productive offensive players clearly have been clicking on all cylinders when they've been on the floor. They are finally healthy fully across the board in terms of having guys like Bradley Beal back onto the floor semi-consistently. Um, but there's still
yeah,
so many questions around them that even if you believe in KD and Devin Booker, where do you stand on them going into a 7 game series with the lack of continuity with those three guys having a real sample size this year? I understand that. There's a part of me that looks at it and wonders, like, okay, well, I understand that Boston is number one, but everybody believes that it's basically Boston versus Denver just waiting to happen. But to a
mhm,
certain extent, not entirely, because the Western Conference is a lot more wide open
yeah,
even with Denver being as good as they are. But most would maybe question why isn't Denver just automatically number two off of the fact that they should get champions advantage. They have
yeah.
the best player in the NBA. They have the guy who that either is going to win or come runner up in the MVP this year, right? Like I think those are the arguments that can be made too. So I don't think that there. I mean, I'm not here to question your philosophy in terms of like
Yeah.
you putting the power rankings together. I only thought it was interesting, and I brought it to your attention of even talking about it on the pod because I realized, oh, we don't do power rankings on our podcast. You
Yeah.
cover that through our page so frequently that we don't really touch on it in terms of like my contributions,
Yeah.
what maybe my thought process is, maybe what my viewpoints on some of your power rankings you drop throughout the year are. We don't really have those conversations. So considering that somebody at least to my knowledge, for the first time in quite some time had a real take on the structure of it, I just thought it would be interesting. But I think that's why people should stay tuned every single week that TV drops, is because the philosophy is shown through the fact that since he's doing this every single week, there can only be but so much change, obviously. But he also is doing this from a position of not necessarily trying to have the exact same set of rankings every single week unless teams give him a reason to feel as though they are stagnant in the place that they're in.
Yeah, 100%. And look, man, I'm willing to take all these criticisms. I'm willing to take this type of discussion. It's better than the net comments. It's better than the net comments. So I will take this sort of conversation if it means we get to have some discourse on the NBA. So if you guys again follow along on the weekly journey of the NBA power rankings every Monday, I'm gonna post these out. So let's get changed again Monday. Maybe there might be another type of comment questioning it as well, but I'd rather have this discourse. And I rather see that than the net GIF that I see every other video. So we'll take that. But yeah,
Sure.
let me know what you think of the power rankings, like I mentioned before, down below, and continue to follow along for the remainder of the season. Moving on to the next topic, like I mentioned off the top, this was honestly would be considered the dogs of the NBA season. But what this week in basketball has showed us is, man, this is why we love the game of basketball, because there has been so much going on throughout this whole season that you just gotta we just gotta highlight just the biggest things that happened, because there were highlights, there were game winners, there was history being made, all in the span of this week. So we're gonna try and cover all of that in this episode in a this or that sort of scenario. Kind of think look through each of these three prompts and see which one was more impressive over the three. So let's get into it. Jay, which was the craziest dunk between the two here? Anthony Edwards dunk on John Collins, or Jalen Johnson dunking over Austin Reeves?
Okay, so the craziest part about both of these, context behind both of them is insane if you really put it in perspective. So for Anthony Edwards, he comes in at the end of the game and says that he dislocated his finger catching
Yeah.
said body. He also told a little kid that the reason why he couldn't give him his shoes signed is because he's going to go take them to John Collins later on. Insanely disrespectful. Also
Yes.
insanely impressive. On the other end, Jalen Johnson dang near cleared, full on cleared Austin Reeves And mind you, wasn't this like the first basket of the game?
The first 2 points of the entire game, it was this
Like,
dunk.
like usually, like, oh, don't get me wrong. Maybe I just I believe I've been watching ball a pretty long time, but that's not usually how these type of things happen. You kind of got to get a couple sprints up and down the floor just to get the legs loose before you go unleashing like that. And clearly, Jalen Johnson came into the game with Air Force energy, and had bad intentions, because what a way to get your team their first 2 points.
Well, they got destroyed that game, unfortunately. They got
Well,
destroyed.
yeah, of course. I mean, obviously, it ended up not being a tone setter. If anything, I guess it pissed the Lakers off.
Honestly.
But I think for overall context, I'm gonna take Anthony Edwards, because I just feel like if you dunk on a dude with the kind of ferocity that puts your finger out of place, you clearly meant to body bag this dude. You clearly meant to body bag this dude in a disrespectful manner. Now, don't get me wrong. Again, Jalen Johnson opening the game with disrespect, definitely wild. But I think it also hurts them that, again, like you mentioned beforehand, they also went on to later on be blown out. Not to say that should have any impact on the dunk itself. The dunk itself is still insane. But if we're going dunk for dunk, if we're saying, okay, you kicked off the game like this, or I literally dislocated my finger making this happen, I'm going to go with the guy that wanted to rip the rim off so bad that he was willing to lose his finger in the process. Like, that's crazy, dude. That's honestly actually crazy that came out after the game was over.
Now, honestly, both of these dunks were insane. And the fact that they happened, by the way, minutes apart from each other. Because, like, Anthony Edwards happened to, like, 1 point, and then 5-6 minutes later, it was a Jalen Johnson dunk. Anthony Edwards' dunk, by the way, was super important because that ended up, like, helping, like, the Timberwolves come back in their game, too. So you got to add that to context. But, geez, man, like, you said you think adding context. If you want to even add more context to the situation, John Collins was just cleared from concussion protocol before this game. He was cleared, and then this play happened. He had to re-enter the protocol because of how bad that was. Like, you could tell, and honestly, all of the reactions from the bench, like from the Timberwolves, if everyone has seen Kyle Anderson's face during this play, he looked like the Home Alone guy. He looked like freaking Kevin McAllister out there with the both hands on his cheeks and everything. It was crazy, but. The Jalen Johnson dunk, again, I'm going to choose the hand dunk, obviously, but shout out to Jalen Johnson dunk, because Austin Reeves was asked about it after the game, and he was like, how did it feel to get dunked on like that? And he's like, you don't want to know my POV. You don't want to know, because you know what he did? He got a sack of nuts in his face. That's what happened to Austin Reeves. He's like, you don't even want to know the POV of that. So, he took it in stride. Obviously, they had to win, so that it was probably easier to joke about it. But still, Anthony Edwards dunk, one of the craziest dunks I've ever seen. I guess, like, the only thing you could continue off this is, like, Jay, do you think that Anthony Edwards is gonna have, like, the best dunking, like, montage by the end of his career? Because, like, he's only in year 3, year 4, and he's already had the Utah Watanabe dunk. He's had multiple putback dunks. Like, this guy's catching bodies on a weekly basis at this point.
I mean, it's becoming a joke to the point that, like, his athleticism it's going to be something that we're going to have to really break down as we get further down his career, because I think it's going to also impact how we view him as a top caliber player. If you remember when we did our top players 5 years from now, right? You were actually significantly higher on Anthony Edwards than even I was, despite the fact that I felt pretty strongly about him as well. TV, we just saw this dude smack basically his neck on the backboard going for a block not even a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
Just this display of athleticism. It's becoming something that's showing up heavily on both sides of the floor. The dunks, they're always going to be the thing that ends up being the Sports Center top 10 for Anthony Edwards. But the defensive prowess that's starting to show up with his athleticism now, it's going to be the thing that, I mean, don't get me wrong, the montage was already built to be OD, right?
Yeah.
But look, TV, the real question we're going to be having soon is, I mean, Anthony Edwards had a jersey number change. And number 5, Anthony Edwards, his first season as number 5, he has come out swinging, my boy.
Right. I mean, he's on a trajectory to have, be one of the top Timberwolves of all time. Just keep building around this man. I mean, number 2, 3 in the West right now, right there with the number 1 and 2 seeds. Just keep building around him because you got yourself a generational player here, and he's just gonna continue to grow, continue to give us all these highlights because he's one of the best personalities in the league, best guys to watch on the court. Can't wait to see what he does going forward.
Yeah.
Next two we're gonna be discussing. Jay, which one was more impressive? The Bam game-winning three, going full Steph Curry, literally getting the ball and pulling up from near the logo against the Detroit Pistons, or the Kyrie Irving shooting a left-handed 20-foot floater over one Nikola Jokic.
Okay, so actually, when I saw you post this, I was already conflicted from rip because the first thing I thought was, Bam don't shoot threes. So like for him to act that way is just like, I know you need. It's different because they needed it, right? I think specifically him having to pull up from range like that, they needed it. But it's the degree of difficulty still needs to be weighed. But TV, I've seen the Kyrie I've seen the Kareem the Kareem floater on Twitter and Instagram in a way that I just like. The more and more I see it, the volume in which I've seen this play, and this might just be to the mere fact that I just am a lot more of a Kyrie supporter, so I think it just ends up on my TL a lot. But TV, what? Like,
right, honestly.
First of all, left hand, what? First of all, we know it's Kyrie, right? We can make an argument that he's probably one of the best, if not the best, maybe finisher in the NBA. But this isn't about around the basket finishing like that. If this was some kind of under the hoop, around the basket, acrobatic finish from Kyrie Irving, okay. Like, we're so used to that you can almost like lean Bam's way just out of the mere fact that we might be desensitized by Kyrie's greatness, right? But like, TV, I look at this floater and it almost reminds me. Do you remember the game back when he was a Brooklyn Net against the Minnesota Timberwolves?
Yeah.
The double crossover fall, regains dribble, gets back to spot, and just barely shoots over Josh Okogie and misses.
Yeah.
This is one of those where I felt like Kyrie clearly had that in mind and said he's going to finish the job by any means.
Yeah.
Like by any means. So I'm going with Kyrie, man. There might be a little bit of bias there. Again, especially with the fact that Bam don't shoot threes. But I think that was for Bam, that was a gotta have it three. It wasn't like a Bam pulls for three buzzer beater thing that's like, I don't know. It's different. I think it's different. I think it's different based off situation. With Kyrie, it was just one of those things where I just think the overall degree of difficulty is different from Bam Adebayo just not being a three-point shooter type.
Yeah, I know what you mean. By the way, Bam in his 4 of his last 5 games hit a 3-pointer. He's adding it to his game a little bit. But Kyrie, man, that left-handed floater, the Nuggets were freaking killing it since the All-Star break. The Dallas Mavericks had this game. They let the Nuggets back in it, and then Kyrie Irving just killing it with. You don't understand. This guy was maybe two steps away from the 3-point line when he was able to hit this over a 7-footer.
Contested, right? Contested, very
contested over 7-footer. Honestly, that plus you see the reactions from Luka Doncic and Maxi Kleber where they couldn't even celebrate with their teammates just because they were in absolute shock of what just happened. They were in absolute awe, just basking in the greatest that was that Kyrie Irving shot. So I do have to agree with you there. That Kyrie Irving shot just had a different aura about it. The Heat, why are you in a tie ball game versus the Pistons? I don't know. But at the same time, you're up against the defending champs. Your back's on the wall. You have to shoot this floater from 20-something feet, and he actually just absolutely swishes it in pure Kyrie fashion. So yeah, I have to agree with you. The Kyrie Irving shot was better.
Well, okay, one other thing that I think is important, TV, you just kind of added another context. Miami against Detroit should not have even looked like that.
Yeah.
That's another thing that kind of puts it in perspective. Like you said, this is Dallas going up against the defending champs in a situation where the Dallas Mavericks are still pushing to remain, in real, top seed playoff contention because nobody wants to be in the play-in Western Conference. Let's be honest. Like that's between the Eastern and Western Conference play-in tourneys. Yeah. The West is the one where no matter what seed you finish with, you do not feel good being a part of the 7 through 10 at all.
I'm just looking at it right now. Imagine a freaking play tournament where you have Luka, Kyrie, KD, Booker, LeBron, Anthony Davis, Steph Curry. Like, it's insane.
It's like you literally just built the West All-Star team by accident, and they're not even. These are the teams that aren't solidified in the playoffs.
Right. Yeah.
So you don't want to be a part of this mix at all. So with that being the case, that's a big gotta have it win. Versus with Miami, they still need it because the Eastern Conference is not completely shelled out all the way either. Let's just make that clear. But there's no world where Miami can fall too low where things get completely out of hand.
Yeah.
In the East, right? So being in a game like that against Detroit, definitely it sours the search situation a little bit, even though that might be a little unfair.
A little bit unfair. I mean, it's a BAM three-pointer. You just gotta appreciate the fact that it's a freaking BAM three-pointer. But so it's close in terms of degree of difficulty. But if you only look at the whole situation, all of the context, then obviously you're gonna take the Kyrie Irving one, and it just looks prettier. Let's be honest. True. If you take a Kyrie Irving floater versus a BAM three-pointer, I'm definitely taking a Kyrie floater. So yeah, Kyrie floater for sure for the win. Last but not least, which was the crazier record being broken this week? We have KD moving into 8th all-time scoring, passing Shaquille O'Neal, or I didn't even think they knew this was a thing that was happening. Duncan Robinson becoming the fastest player to 1,000 threes only in 343 games, which is pretty crazy, thinking that the one person who's the least amount of games who've done this is Duncan Robinson. But Jay, I'm gonna throw it back to you. Which one is more impressive?
So usually I would go with my guy KD in this one because I think it's insane that he continues to move up the ladder. And more specifically, it's not just that he got to 8th, it's who he passed. He passed Shaquille O'Neal, one of the most prolific scorers as a dominant big man we've ever seen in the NBA, right?
Yeah.
But we have to remember who Duncan Robinson is, right?
Yeah.
Undrafted guy, comes in with the Miami Heat, sets the world on fire pretty early as a guy who kind of, manifests himself as one of the best knockdown shooters in the NBA. We're coming off a season where we were wondering if he was cooked. Yeah. Seriously, we're coming off a season. We were coming off a season where we were wondering if this guy was in one-hit wonder territory, and not necessarily one season, but a guy who we didn't necessarily know if there was any longevity to the play style that he had. Because after guys figure out, oh, he's a JJ Redick knockdown shooter type, okay, we can figure out how to exploit that, and we can make him a person who is obsolete in terms of being able to have them on the floor. He had a lot of DMPs last year. He had a lot of short stints last year. And that was for a Miami Heat team that made a significant run through the postseason. Yeah. And they did a lot of it, maybe with his help towards the back half of the postseason run.
Yeah.
But he surely was not very helpful on their run to getting in that position.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not just the mere fact that he was able to do it in such a short period of time. It's the fact that if things went differently, it could have been shorter.
Yeah.
So I think that's the part where I actually have to pay Duncan Robinson a little bit more respect here. We also have to remember that Kevin Durant, if there's one thing we knew about him coming out of Texas in that draft class, he's going to be able to get buckets. We knew it off the rip. We saw it in Seattle. We saw it in Oklahoma City. We've seen it in every stint that he's had since being drafted. And we knew that if anybody was going to be considered as one of the most prolific scorers in the NBA, it was going to be Kevin Durant. He's a multi-time scoring champ for a reason. This is a thing that when you see Kevin Durant moving up the ladder like this, you're not surprised by it. You're not shocked by it by any means. He's been playing at a really high level every single year that he's been healthy. And even in the years when he's been a little dinged up, when he does end up on the floor, you still remember he's Kevin Durant. Again, another interesting thing, tricky enough, there's a world where Kevin Durant, if he doesn't miss full seasons here and there, how much quicker does he get here? How much further along are we in this conversation with them? So I do think there's something there, but I think when you put the backstory of who we knew Kevin Durant was coming into the league compared to who Duncan Robinson is coming to the league and what they've been able to accomplish, yes, Duncan Robinson is a three-point specialist, so him knocking threes down at a high clip in this new NBA environment, you can nitpick on whether or not you feel that's super impressive or not. But I think the time frame in which he's been able to do it, in the circumstance he's been able to do it, as an undrafted guy with our Miami roster, who outside of him during his tenure has not been the most 3-point heavy shooting type teams.
Yeah.
You have to give him a lot of respect.
Yeah, no, you laid it out perfectly there. I mean, the Duncan Robinson, I think it's a lot closer than what people think. They're going to be like, what? 1,000 threes in that many games compared to the all-time scoring list? It's pretty impressive. I think it's a lot closer than a lot of people like to believe. But I still will go with Kevin Durant here, mostly because of the fact of what you mentioned. Imagine if he didn't miss basically those 2 seasons due to injury. We would be like talking about it potentially being knocking on the door of top 5 scoring all time already. Because right now he's like 2,800 points away from Will Chamberlain. You add in those 2 seasons, he was probably getting like what 1,300 to 1,500 points each per season. He's already like approaching Wilt, Dirk, MJ level scoring.
Mm.
Now, is he still gonna potentially reach that? We've seen this year. He's freaking 35 years old and he's still like one of the best players in the league. So there's still a chance he's probably gonna like get up there in terms of scoring. But the fact that he is still like this high in contention for these sort of records, and he missed 2 years. You got to put some respect on KD, especially because he came into an era where there's very few people who were scoring like that, and he kind of made it normalized. Now everyone's kind of catching up to him at that point, but I would still say that KD is a bit more impressive just because of the caliber of people he's around. But the Duncan Robinson one, man, to do it in that little time, especially in this 3-point shooting era, when you have to think Trae Young is probably close to this record. You have to think that people like Luka Doncic, a lot of guys who attempt a lot of threes on high volume alongside Duncan Robinson, could be around this, but he was the one to hit 1,000 threes in the shortest time. So you got to show him some love as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, neither one can be sniffed at, because it's one of those things where both are considered impressive in their own ways. And I don't even, like I said, definitely don't want to disrespect Kevin Durant's run in this sense, because you can make a similar argument in terms of him missing time, like you said, where he could end up, where he could have been on this all-time list. I think there's a little bit more narrative aspect for me in terms of leaning Duncan Robinson, obviously with his background.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, these are 2 feats that even in an offensive heavy genre of basketball that we're in, still are just impressive feats regardless.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, those are the 3 things we talked about for this week, this crazy week of basketball. Let us know down below. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree? Let's have this discussion down in the comment section. Jay, it is time for what we could consider the final top 5, or we could consider this TV and Jay's All-Stars, which is the guys that are not talked about as much that we want to show love here to, kind of the under the radar, underrated guys here. And we're going to kind of discuss our teams for this sort of topic. So players that are not really talked about in the league, but we've had our eye on this entire season, and we just want to show them some love here. Jay, how do you feel about the 5 that you chose?
I feel pretty strong about it. I changed my list up a little bit since we first organized this, but to be honest, I always enjoy these, man. I'm the guy who ends up bringing up Tyus Jones' name like once every 2 weeks. So I mean, it's one of those things where like being able to put together an entire roster worth of an entire starting 5 of like the guys that I view as highly as Tyus Jones, that are like, these role player-esque guys who are super productive, steady hands, definitely would trust them as part of a playoff rotation, but not necessarily your superstar talent, maybe not even consider your star talent. I enjoy these a lot more. I always think the all-star drafts, the superstar drafts and stuff like that, I don't enjoy them as much because I feel like we all know the names. We know them. But some of these you're going to learn today.
Yeah, 100%. And we're going to go through it again, player by player. We're not going to have like a strict, forwards, guards, all that stuff. But we're going to like make sure we have a 5 that we want to present to you guys. So Jay, the first player you want to talk about, let's talk about the first players we have on our list. So who do you have as your first guy?
Okay, so the very first guy that I'm going to go with for this list is going to be, who's the person I'm going with? Let's go Dillon Brooks.
Dillon Brooks. Awesome. Great pick there. I'm going with Jalen Suggs.
Dang, TV.
Yeah. All right. Okay, talk to me about Dillon Brooks, though. Talk to me.
Okay, so Dylan Brooks, I think that this is something that's been really under the radar when you talk about the transition for this Houston Rockets team. Dylan Brooks has been able to come in and just be a knockdown shooter. 36.8% is the best of his career in quite some time. And even with his best being 37.5%, that was still on only 2 threes per game. He's all the way up to 5 now. Might not sound like a lot, but the volume is definitely there. An increase in volume while also increasing your hit rate. Love to see that when talking about being able to be a legitimate 3-and-D shooter. You got to remember who Dylan Brooks is. The 3-and-D archetype is exactly what his mold is, but everybody's always kind of pinned him as a guy who's more of a shot chucker, and understandably so. In past seasons, 13.6 shots, 16.4, 15.4, 14.6. He's been a guy that over the last couple of seasons prior to coming to Houston, he was getting a lot more shots up than maybe his offensive repertoire should represent. But this year, down to 10.6, and he's making every shot count. 43.4% is actually the best of his career. Not by much, but by a decent amount, considering the fact that he's on a lower volume. So it means his points matter a lot more when he does knock them down. Dylan Brooks, I feel like, has had a real culture shock, but in a positive way. We really wondered when he signed for that 4-year, $80 million with the Houston Rockets, if the Houston Rockets were getting a steal with the fact that they were getting a guy who might not have got the fairest of shakes as the fall guy, if you may, like when it comes to the Memphis Grizzlies coming off that series against the Los Angeles Lakers. He has come to Houston and made a real name for himself by just being the dude that comes in, guards at a high level, sets the tone as a perimeter defender, and will not be a dude that you let stay open as a three-point shooter on a night-to-night basis. That's his best role, and he's definitely maximizing it. You got to give him a lot of credit because this right here, he's not necessarily improved in terms of his overall stature in the league, but what he has done is he's identified something that some players, a lot of players maybe even struggle with is this is what I am best at. This is the role that I am maximized in. And if I maximize myself in this role, I can be much more serviceable. And he's been able to do that. And it's not a lot of people that are willing to tap themselves on the shoulder and tell themselves, if I take a different type of path, I can actually be a better player. Dylan Brooks did it in this environment. I mess with it heavy.
No, I don't. I 100 agree with that. Like he has been. I mean, we talked about early in the season when he went off to that super hot start where he was averaging like 22 points per game in the first like 3 weeks of the season. Like we
Mm-hmm.
were talking about him then, and although like that production has like dropped off significantly, the way he's affected the culture, the way that he has like been just a perfect 3-man for this team on the defensive end, and just really trying to showcase like Ime's plan for this team, saying, we're not this JV team anymore. We're not going to be like running around like it's AAU anymore. No, no, no. We're going to bring in some veterans here. People talk about Fred VanVleet all the time, but they don't give enough credit to Dylan Brooks. It's like such a good dynamic between the two because you have the calm, you have the steady, no pun intended, steady figure of Fred VanVleet there at the point guard position. But then you have someone who brings the swagger. He's the one who like brought that Memphis culture to life back there too. So he's just bringing that to Houston, bringing that confidence over there, and he's still putting up production where, of course, he's not going to be like the third option like he was in Memphis in the past, but he's still really effective as that 3-point shooter. Someone who can guard the best player, and he's been doing that to the highest of levels in this season in Houston. So I do like that pick there with Dylan Brooks. But I do want to talk about Jalen Suggs because what I see, like, I mean, like we've known that was gonna be an impact player for the Orlando Magic, but we just didn't know like where his stance was there because they've had that point guard like logjam for like the longest time there. But this season, more than ever, I feel like Jalen Suggs has kind of separated himself from the rest in terms of him being a long term piece because this season he's showing his all defense capabilities. He is one of the best defensive guards in the league. And I talked about earlier with the Orlando Magic, top 5 defense in the league. Him being the point of attack defender is a nightmare for defenses. Imagine you had Patrick Beverly energy, which Jalen Suggs does. He plays with a bunch of swagger on the defensive end. But he's also hitting 40% from 3, 47% from the field. You got one of the premier 3-and-D guys in the NBA at the guard position, someone who should be on all defensive teams for the foreseeable future, and is someone who has been like part of this whole resurgence of the Orlando Magic, a team that wasn't expected to be in the playoff picture now now solidifying themselves as a top 5 team in the East. You got to show a whole lot of love to Jalen Suggs there. He's definitely like one guy on my list.
We have to show him so much love on the list that the reason why I reacted when you said him is because he was literally the second guy up for me.
Jeez, that's perfect. Okay, awesome. I'll let you talk about Jalen Suggs too, but yeah, I got Jalen Suggs as my first guy. My second guy I want to discuss here was Dante DiVincenzo.
I guess I'll go quick on Jalen Suggs since you just kind of already like did a lot of the heavy lifting. I think another thing just to highlight is through his first 2 seasons, he only started 65 games. He started all 62 games he's played in this year. You can clearly see that Jamal Mosley is willing to give him the keys. It might not be something long-term necessarily because obviously there are names out there, the Anthony Simons, the Trae Youngs of the world that the Orlando Magic have to and should be taking a good look at it as new potential starting point guards, star level point guards even to take over the helm. But Jalen Suggs, you have to also think about it from this perspective. He has shown a level of versatility that even if a guy like Trae Young or Anthony Simons were brought in, his defensive capabilities on that side of the ball paired with the fact that he is shooting the 3 ball much, much better this year. Like you said, 40% on 5 attempts per game. Really, really huge considering that he was a pretty dog water 3-point shooter his first 2 seasons in the league. 40% on 5 attempts is definitely taking strides in the proper direction. He's going to be a guy that even if they bring in a superstar caliber guard to take over the main spot, he can still be used as a off guard defensively to cover up for those deficiencies. And he's not a complete pick-me offensively because he's still a capable knockdown shooter from distance. I think that's super important too. This is going to be something that's going to play out really strongly for Jalen Suggs' career long term. When you look at the fact that the Orlando Magic have invested a lot into trying to get a lot more ball handling on the team. Anthony Black, Cole Anthony, Paulo Banchero handles the ball. Franz Wagner handles the ball. Markelle Fultz is on this team. But here is Jalen Suggs being entrusted by Jamal Mosley to be one of the main catalysts for running this show for a team that, if you remember before the season, I said last year, the Kings was my squad. Who was my team this year coming into the league? The Orlando Magic. I'm not going to say or take credit, but what I am going to say is I hope people are seeing the vision because Jalen Suggs is definitely a part of what has made them one of the best teams in the league so far this year. And one of the reasons why I think that when they go into the postseason, I don't think people should just pick against them blindly, regardless of who they go up against. Because I think even in their first real postseason run in quite some time, this team, I don't think people necessarily are looking forward to taking on the Orlando Magic.
They're not a wash at all. This team is not a wash whatsoever, and especially when you got, you got to be scared, especially if you have lineups with him and Jonathan Isaac. By the way, our guy Jonathan Isaac, shout out to him. He's been like getting a bit of a resurgence this season as well. Yeah. But Jalen Suggs and him like on the defensive end for those stars and especially in the wing and guard positions, that's not gonna be a fun night any sort of night. So facing Orlando Magic in a 7-game series, definitely gonna be frustrating. So yeah, shout out to Jalen Suggs there. I gotta talk about Dr. DiVincenzo this year, man. We talk about knockdown shooters. This guy is like what, number 3 in the league in total threes? He has his career high season was last season with the Warriors 100. What was it? 150. He's at 216 right now. He's at 216. It's absolutely insane. Knockdown shooter on crazy volume, by the way. He's
crazy volume.
Attempting 8 threes. He's averaging 3 threes a game, 14 points a game. And you have to remember what this guy's situation was in the Milwaukee Bucks. He was a solid starter for this team. They bring in Jrue Holiday and they kick this guy to the curb. This guy got no chance. And he got kicked out. Was a member of the Sacramento Kings. Was solid for the Warriors. Very surprised he didn't bring him back. But now joining his Villanova boys in the New York Knicks, he's finding his stride. These guys know where his spots are, and he is taking advantage of them big time. Especially with the amount of injuries that they had, especially with Julius Randle, OG Anunoby, you needed some guy to just be a steady hand, someone that you could rely on night in, night out. And that's what Dante DiVincenzo has been doing all season long. He is a long-term member of this New York Knicks team, not only just to fill out the Villanova purposes. Hopefully they can bring in Mikal Bridges down a bit sick as well. But the fact that they have this guy who is still a very good defender at the guard position, alongside their defensive coach, a lot of the lengthy guys around him, and he's able to bring you this offensively, which we haven't seen in his career at all, is not talked about enough. He's been fantastic this year.
Guys, I promise you, me and TV didn't talk about our list before we hopped on the pod. I promise. But this guy was literally third. This guy was literally third. Jeez. And I can show you guys. I don't have to hide anything in the iPhone history. I only got 5 tabs pulled up. You guys will see the other ones in a minute. But hey, look, this dude, he's come in. TV, let me ask you, let's do a thought experiment with Donte DiVincenzo, because I actually think that this is a good way to build on it, considering the fact that we both have him on the list. The Milwaukee Bucks, the Sacramento Kings, the Golden State Warriors. Those are his 3 prior stops before getting to the New York Knicks, correct?
Yeah.
Tell me if I'm wrong. All 3 of those teams are missing a Donte DiVincenzo archetype player at this moment.
100%.
At this very moment.
At this very moment, yes.
At this very moment, every single one of those teams is missing a pesky perimeter defender that is shooting the ball at a high clip. Donte DiVincenzo could step onto Milwaukee and replace Malik Beasley right now. Right now. Yeah, Donte DiVincenzo could go to the Sacramento Kings and step in where Kevin Huerter has stepped back right now.
Yes.
The same thing could be said for the Golden State Warriors, who honestly need any kind of easy shot generation outside of Stephen Curry this year, right? Yeah. And they've been able to get a lot more offensive playmaking from Jonathan Kuminga as of late. Shout out to bro. But other than that, the easy shot making has been a very difficult thing for the Golden State Warriors to generate so far this season, which has made their year a lot more difficult when it comes to guys like Klay Thompson not playing up to snuff. Granted, he's been better as of recent, but still, Draymond Green, similar as well. They don't necessarily have much offensive firepower on that team aside from Stephen Curry and Jonathan Kuminga to a lesser degree. Donte DiVincenzo would literally give them easy shot making as a high volume 3-point shooter, and he would still have I was about to say he would have pretty strong spacing considering you play against Stephen Curry. Should we also highlight the fact that it's insane that Donte DiVincenzo is hitting threes at this rate while playing on the Knicks of all teams in terms of spacing?
Yeah, it's crazy. It really is, just because he's it's not like he's got some crazy minutes boost. Out of all the players on the freaking Knicks, he's not in the 30s or anything. No. He's averaging 27 minutes a game, and he's averaged less minutes than he was in the last year he was with the Milwaukee Bucks.
Dude, Josh Hart could never. Josh Hart could never. This man's been playing 48 minutes for what feels like the entire season. Donte DiVincenzo was coming here, and 27 minutes is just barely under what his career high is overall in terms of minutes per game. But he's coming in 27 minutes and literally just saying, yep, we're just going to fire. We're just going to fire. We're going to play good defense, and we're going to think about all the guys that hit threes at a high clip that we look at across the league and what their deficiencies are, right? If you think about the handful of guys, the Max Struses, the Sam Merrills, the Malik Beasleys, you just go down the list of the guys who tend to be high 3-point volume shooters. They're typically not plus defenders on top of it. Donte DiVincenzo is probably in a class, maybe not of his own, but a very exclusive group of guys who are not star caliber players, but can come in and have a torch from beyond the arc and still have to go down on the opposite end of the floor and go guard one of the top guys on the perimeter and hold up in a real way. He's probably in a very I wouldn't say elite company, but again, I would say a very favorable company in terms of the group of guys in today's league that are capable of doing that.
I'm just looking at the top 6 right now. Check this out. Steph Curry, Luka Doncic, Klay Thompson, Donte DiVincenzo, Jason Tatum, and Paul George. Insane. How what company?
TV. What graphic can we use that says which does not belong? Exactly. Serious. If we're being honest here, even when you list that out, we just named an all-star starting Donte DiVincenzo in the middle.
Yeah.
That's what just took place. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
what we're talking about and then you can make the argument if you go down that list, he's probably the second
Mhm.
best defender of that group.
Low key,
He might be the second best
low
defender of that
key.
group.
Low key, especially with like the regression Paul George has had a little bit to, Jason Tatum. I don't know
I
how
won't
he.
say, I won't say he's better than
Yeah,
PG, so that's why I said you
yeah,
might
sure,
be able to, because Paul
sure,
George, like you said, defensively has regressed a little bit, but Jason Tatum, I would say, is probably still like a little bit of a better defender.
yeah,
But you can make the argument that he's the second or third best defender of that
yes,
group while also being a part of the top group
yeah,
in this
exactly,
category. Like that's
yeah.
insane.
It's insane. You gotta show off to Tati DiVincenzo. He's gonna be so key for them in the playoffs, man. He's something that the Knicks have been missing for a while. They were hoping to have that in Quinn Grimes, and he freaking fell out of the rotation hella quick. So the fact
Yeah.
that they're able to replace that with Dante DiVincenzo this season and able to get off Quinn Grimes to get other players back, solid management from the New York Knicks there.
Yeah.
But I have to talk about my third guy too, and like we've had a crazy similar list so far, but we talked about him earlier, so I'm not gonna go too much into it. I'm gonna go with Duncan Robinson, man. Duncan Robinson,
Huh?
under the radar type of season. Like we mentioned when we talked about him, with the 1,000 threes or whatever. He was nearly unplayable for most of last season.
Mm.
And that's crazy because think about Duncan Robinson, we think about his first season in the bubble, was such a key member to that Finals Heat team. Sure, he was a final near the like a key player near the end of that run last year, but he was struggling a lot during the regular season. Like you mentioned, there was a lot of DNP CDs there. Coach's decision. The
Mm-hmm.
fact that he's able to be a legitimate starter this year, 13 points a game, shooting. That's the one thing we don't have to worry about Duncan Robinson. His shooting is always going to be elite, no matter what. But he's able to stay on the court, find other ways to score. Like, I've been seeing him score in like more ways than I've ever seen him score before. It's just a testament to how he's been getting to the gym, trying to, up his game and make it so the Heat still get the benefits of his amazing 3-point shooting, but he doesn't become such a one-way dimensional player. He's an okay defender. He's not going to be of course you're going to be like trying to put him into pick and rolls and everything, but he's not going to be a pushover there. He's been better at like finishing on the inside. He's just become a better player overall, and I think that needs to be highlighted. And when you look at the him and March, and like especially like with the amount of injuries that they had, he's averaging like 17 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists on 41% shooting from three on 10 attempts a game. This is exactly what the Duncan Robinson you need, and I think that his season has gone unnoticed, so I'm going to put him here in my list as well.
No, I 100% agree. And the other thing, you mentioned it towards the back end, it's the injuries. You have to look at everything for the Miami Heat. They lost Gabe Vincent in free agency. They lost Max Strus in free agency. They haven't had consistent play from Jimmy Butler or Bam Adebayo or Tyler Hero for that matter, whether it be on the floor or their lack of availability in general. You look at the fact that they had to go after Terry Rozier. There was the fact that Kyle Lowry hasn't necessarily produced to the level they needed him to. In his time on the floor when he was with Miami earlier on in the season, or even dating back to a little bit later on. You look at everything with the Miami Heat roster in particular, especially this season, and you just look at it as they needed this from him, and he stepped up. Like, I think that's the most important thing. I think it's very bland radio to come in and say XYZ needs to step up because these people are off the floor. These people are injured. It's very bland radio to just keep saying people need to step up in the absence of others. It's definitely different when you can expound upon how they have been able to add to their game, how they've been able to fill that role, how they have been able to be sufficient in a more increased role where their minutes matter so much more. And Duncan Robinson is one of those guys for a Miami Heat team where their roster has seen a lot of inconsistency this year. His play has been important to being able to keep themselves afloat. They've probably been the biggest ebbs and flows team all year. If you remember, we were 2-3 weeks deep into the season, and I was already like, are the Heat cooked? And a couple of weeks ago, they were on that that 8-0 stretch. And we were like, wait a minute. Are we putting together NBA scripts where Miami is tearing down the league again?
Yeah.
Like, this is the different things that come with Miami, but it's because they have guys like Duncan Robinson on the roster that make you look at them and go, wow, they really are a championship contender anytime they're in the postseason. Anytime they're in contention to be in that top 8 for the East. I mean, if you sleep, you might get left on the canvas because they're here.
As long as they're breathing, they have a chance. That's
For real.
what the Miami Heat have been like during this entire stretch, and it's not going to stop anytime soon. So yeah, shout out to Duncan Robinson here for having a fantastic bounce back year. All right, Jay. Next up, who you got your fourth player here? Who is your fourth guy on Jay's All Star list? I guess of your All Stars.
My fourth guy, I almost didn't put him on this list, and it's literally because we're in March Madness and I'm a UNC guy. But I gotta put my man's Grayson Allen on here.
I was
I never thought I'd ever be able to use a Duke Blue Devil for these kind of things, let alone during March Madness itself. And he's a guy who also we have a little bad history with. If you've seen him play against the Chicago Bulls, I ain't gonna speak on that too much.
100%.
But nonetheless, I have to give flowers to Grayson Allen this season because dude, the dude has been very productive this year as part of a Phoenix Suns team that has really struggled to find any real level of consistency outside of Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. It's been very tough to kind of put together a full stint. One of the most hilarious things about Phoenix that wasn't really talked about is a lot of their minimum signings they did this past all season, where we thought it was one of the better shorthanded pickups free agency wise for Phoenix. Most of those guys aren't on the roster anymore.
Yeah.
So Utah, Kata Bates Diop, like those guys are no longer on the team.
Jordan Goodwin.
Yeah, like now they've been able to, suffice with being able to bring in a Royce O'Neal. Obviously, Eric Gordon has still been able to stick around despite the fact that he, hasn't been as effective as I would have thought coming into the year. They've gotten real minutes from Bol, things of that nature. But Grayson Allen, he has been a real godsend three-point shooting wise to provide some much needed spacing for a Phoenix Suns team that kind of dating back the last 3 or 4 years has always lived in the mid-range with CP and Devin Booker, and now with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. They've always been a mid-range team, and now Phoenix has this real three-point element from the fact that they have a guy in Grayson Allen who is able to stretch the floor. And I mean, TV, this is ridiculous. Almost 6 attempts from beyond the arc, and he's hitting 48%.
Insane.
It's as close to automatic as it gets.
He's Western DiVincenzo. Let's be honest. He's
Seriously.
Western DiVincenzo.
I mean, it's as automatic as it gets. It's one of the most terrifying weapons you can have in the league right now is a guy that can stretch the floor to this level. And the thing that's also the most impressive, if you actually watch some of the games for Phoenix, Grayson Allen has gotten a lot better at putting the ball on the floor this year. And I think that's something that's notable because when we tend to look at three-point shooters, we were just talking about this with Duncan Robinson. Duncan Robinson has had a couple of really strong assist games this year. You know who else has had a couple of double-digit and really high-volume assist games this year as well? Grayson Allen. His ability to put the ball on the floor and create space, create offense out of the fact that now people have to respect his three-point shooting. And I say now as if he hasn't been a knockdown three-point shooter for most of his career. He's a career 45% three-point shooter. This near 50, I'm not gonna say it's definitely out of left field, but considering the volume on top of it, it's huge for him. But the fact that he's able to put the ball on the floor now alongside this insane three-point volume, it makes them much more dangerous. And he's going to probably be, and this feels like a little too early, so we'll get into this probably closer to when the postseason hits. But Grayson Allen may arguably be the biggest X factor for the Phoenix Suns when we get playoff time, barring that the Phoenix Suns make the top 8.
Yeah, hopefully. Look, man, I was just looking through all his box scores, and I remember him having a bunch of big games for the Phoenix Suns.
Mm-hmm.
He's had 6 games this year of 8 or more threes.
Crazy.
Insanity from Grayson Allen this year. Out of all the guys, shout out to Devin Booker and Kevin Durant this entire season. They've been absolutely killing it. But Grayson Allen has been the steady hand, especially since Bradley Beal has been out for a good chunk of the season as well. Just last game, again, 9 threes for Grayson Allen. He's just someone who you fit around those guys. Yes, he's improving the ball handling aspect, but he doesn't need the ball to be great. He can move around. He's going to be a pesky defender. He's exactly what you need when you have guys like KD, Book, and Bradley Beal on the floor. You just need that guy to be able to take the best guard, sometimes the best wing, and just really make it hard for them. And he's been able to do that all season long. And he's been relatively healthy. I don't think he's missed. I think he's missed maybe 5 games in total.
Yeah, it hasn't been many. When he's played, yeah, it hasn't been many. He's played in 63 games and started in all of them. So when he's been on the floor, he's been around and been very productive in that time frame.
Yeah, super close to freaking 50-40-90 as well. Almost close to 50-50-90. That's incredible. So yeah,
Wow.
shout out to Grayson Allen. He is definitely a guy deserving to be on this list. My fourth guy on this list has been like a favorite of mine over the last 2 years. So expect to hear more, especially if it comes playoff time. Trey Murphy, Trey Murphy the
Yeah.
third. He has been absolutely great this year. Obviously, he started off the season with like what was it? I think like a torn meniscus or something like that. So he had to like miss like a good chunk of the first half of the season. But ever since he's come back, he's had a slow start. But looking at his numbers since the All-Star break, 17 points per game, 6 rebounds, 3 assists on 40% shooting from three. This is when we talk about X factors. Again, this is not to like kind of like cheat on that topic we're gonna probably do later on this season. But everyone talks about freaking Brandon Ingram on the Pelicans. Everyone talks about Zion Williamson. Trey Murphy is gonna be the one who can be like break games open because he's gonna be he has that knockdown shooting ability where he can hit like 5 or more threes at any given point in the game. He's a tall wing at 6'8", 6'9". He can defend the perimeter. Sneakily athletic. I don't think people really talk about Trey Murphy as much as his athleticism. Used to be in a dunk contest, by the way, but he just does so many things well for the Pelicans that doesn't require him to touch the ball. Doesn't require him to take opportunities away from Zion and Brandon Ingram. And I think that now that he's healthy, now that he's playing at his best level in his career so far, we're gonna see that Pelicans team like with the potential from that series versus the Suns. I think that if they maintain in the top six, they're gonna be a scary team for for anyone they face, whether it's someone in the play-in tournament or someone even in the upper seeds. I think this Pelicans team is gonna really compete hard like every single night, and it's gonna make things really difficult in the playoffs.
No, I agree. And I think one of the most important things when you note Trey Murphy the third's production is you have to think about the overall bearing of riches that this team has at the wing position, or at least in terms of overall ball handlers on the perimeter, right? CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, Jose Alvarado gets a lot of pub, despite the fact that it's probably more on the defensive end. Jordan Hawkins, who we've talked about and raved about on this podcast as a knockdown shooter at the 3 spot, slash the 2/3 spot as a rookie. Trey Murphy III has really been able to come alive these last couple of years. And last year, we were probably more excited about him than this season, of course, because he's coming into the year with an injury. But Trey Murphy III, he's going to be one of those guys, microwave scorer-esque, who can also step out defensively and, be able to guard relatively well on the perimeter. He's going to be a dude that's going to be important if New Orleans, like you mentioned beforehand, wants to really make a run in any way in the Western Conference. This team has been so weird this year, but they have put it together at the right time. They have started to figure out who they are and what they need to be. And although, better late than never is one of those things that a lot of people tend to rely on when it comes to the getting ready for the playoffs. This team in particular is definitely putting themselves in position to be one of those squads that, again, we talked about the Orlando Magic. When you talk about a team that is going in there, not necessarily as green as this Orlando Magic team, because this team has been to the postseason. They've done it without Zion.
Yeah.
But this team is not green to the postseason in the way the Orlando Magic are. But I think this is a team that a lot of people are going to be a little skeptical about postseason when you look at the talent around the Western Conference around them, but also when you look at the ebbs and flows of their season. Outside of Zion Williamson being someone we've never seen in this environment, I think the next closest person you have to look at and wonder, like, what are they going to do under these bright lights with this circumstance? I think it is Trey Murphy III, because I think he's one more season away from really solidifying himself as a real starting small forward. He's been coming off the bench behind Herb Jones a good handful. There's also a lot of games where maybe Herb Jones and him alternate, or maybe they start next to each other because obviously Trey Murphy brings the spacing. But I think there's going to be a time soon where Trey Murphy needs to be able to take the helm as that starting 3 spot. And a good postseason for him next to a guy like Zion Williamson and really unlocking that lineup, it's going to be one of the things that could change his career. Not necessarily like, making him some supermax caliber guy, but a strong postseason for him is huge for New Orleans, who needs to continue to kind of like build on the fact that, like, I'm not gonna say the Zion Williamson era is on, it's on a leash. It's not on a ticking time bomb or anything, but it is one of those things where they have to maximize every season. They do.
Yeah. 100%. So yeah, shout out to Trey Murphy the third there, man. He's gonna if he's like him and the Pelicans are freaking figuring it out at the right time. You don't want this team cooking going into the playoffs because they're gonna take that momentum. And with Willie Green at the helm, this team like showed that they can like provide problems for like a Western Conference champion in the Phoenix Suns. Who knows what they could do this upcoming playoffs?
Yeah.
Jay, our final spot here for our All-Star teams. Who do you got as your final spot?
So I'm pretty sure we won't overlap on this one. So this should be a strong way to end out this segment. But the last guy I'm going with is Memphis rookie G.G. Jackson.
Shout out to his last game against the freaking Warriors, man. Elite basketball. Okay, my guy over here. You know what? I have this guy's been put into trade rumors a lot over the last couple of years. I feel like this guy needs to get some recognition for how good he is as a basketball player. Not a lot of people talk about it. DeAndre Hunter.
DeAndre Hunter. Yeah. I actually want you to go first because I'm intrigued on this one because I'm not as high on DeAndre anymore as you are. And this is as a dude who was really high on him coming out of that draft class. So where do you stand?
You talk about me being high. I was like, the reason why I have him on this list, I was looking back at some of my old videos, and I was thinking of guys who were going to be All-Stars. I think this is like 2022. So guys who were going to be All-Stars in the next 3 to 4 years. I had Anthony Edwards. I had Tyrese Halliburton. I'm like, okay, these are like basic picks, whatever. I had DeAndre Hunter on the list. And I'm like, I was really high on DeAndre Hunter. I look at it this year, and I'm like, sure, he's not All-Star caliber, but he's a damn good basketball player. And the Atlanta Hawks have been trying to trade this man for a couple of years now, and I get it. He's injured quite a bit. He is definitely an injury-prone player. But looking at this season and coming off his injury, and the fact that he is still like, since coming back from his second injury, averaging like 17 points on 41% shooting from 3 on 6 attempts, playing solid, like playing good defense. Literally, the only thing this guy's to figure out is how to stay on the court. I really do believe that there's a good basketball player in there. Maybe he needs a different change of scenery in Atlanta, but I think that he still has a place in this league, and he is far from like what a lot of like Atlanta Hawks fans think he is, which is kind of been a disappointment next to Trae Young because they're expecting him to kind of grow a lot more. I still think he is a very good wing that can like help out like a contender at some point, especially with his improved 3 ball, but I just think, I don't know, the Atlanta Hawks have just been a mess all year that it's like kind of hard to find bright spots, and to be honest, he's been like one of the few there. So I gotta show off to DeAndre Hunter. He's the guy I've been like kind of high on for the last couple of years. I just think that people are not giving him enough credit, even though just because he's been in like a crap ton of trade rumors over the last like 12 months or so.
I'm listening to that description you just gave of DeAndre Hunter, and I'm having weird Chicago Bulls flashbacks of it sounding like we're talking about Patrick Williams. Nonetheless, he's definitely been much more productive than Patrick Williams.
Much more productive
in that time frame. My take on DeAndre Hunter is just the mere fact that, like you mentioned beforehand, his inability to stay on the floor for a long period of time. If you remember, the way he kicked off last year, we thought he was in for it. We thought he was in for it. And there's always that flash in the pan that he's been able to provide over the last couple of seasons that makes you really wonder, like, yo, how dangerous could they really be if they're able to expound upon his game and make him a real secondary ball handler, or, you know, even if he is a tertiary guy on the outside, how much more dangerous could he be if he plays not necessarily a 3-and-D role, but operates as a more ball savvy version of like a Nicholas Batum back when he used to play with the Portland Trailblazers, right? Like, he's not a high volume guy, but he can be super effective on ball. He can make high level reads, play defense at a high cap, like all of these different things that they can maximize around a guy like Trae Young. And I just feel like we always see it in spurts to the point that I never know what to like really do with him. You know what I mean? And that's always the tough part with him. But I love him as a player. Like I said, I was really high on him in his draft class. I just still have questions, just still kind of questionable, but that's exactly why he's a TV and J All-Stars, because he's a dude that I think a lot of people might still be a little confused about in terms of where his stick is in the league, especially when you look at the number on the contract at the moment. So it's one of those things where, you know, there's questions to be had, but there's something in there, man. Like I said, I can't even compare him to like a Patrick Williams, for example, because like Patrick Williams might be a guy this summer that commands $20 million and it's not earned, like, or at least in my perspective. And it's not supposed to switch into like bashing to Patrick Williams, but I think that it's one of those things where when you compare certain play styles, and certain kind of player types, right? DeAndre Hunter and Patrick Williams, they both kind of got the Kawhi stamp in their pre-draft
In the
process.
pre-draft, pre-draft for sure.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? They both got the Kawhi stamp in the pre-draft process, and both of them have actualized that in one way or another, but maybe like 10% of what that player is supposed to look like.
Yeah,
Not
like,
necessarily building in any way that gives us a viewpoint that it's like, oh, this is a real archetype for them. Not really. We've seen probably more spurts from DeAndre Hunter than maybe even Patrick Williams as well. But I think that one of the things that's most important when you look at a guy like DeAndre or Patrick is that more specifically guys like Kawhi Leonard, I think those are dangerous play comps because we have to think about who those guys were coming into the draft class and how their development process played moving forward and how specifically a guy like Kawhi Leonard's environment in which he developed in definitely helped dictate him being able to grow into this all-star caliber two-way wing that we have today. DeAndre Hunter and Patrick Williams do not have the same infrastructure for development as a guy like Kawhi Leonard. So I think we might have to start being a little bit more careful about those kind of comps.
Yeah.
But, sorry, I didn't mean to go rant on DeAndre Hunter or anything like that. But I do think that he's one of those guys. He's a player archetype that I think a lot of people are looking for moving forward, especially with the scarcity of like strong wing play in the league. I just wish that he played more to it.
Yeah, no, honestly, it might just be the Hawks situation, just like the inconsistency from like over the last couple of years as well. A new situation could do him wonders. Maybe for like a team like maybe like on the cusp of going to the playoffs or someone who kind of needs an extra push. DeAndre Hunter might be that guy, so maybe be on the lookout because there already been rumors of the Hawks kind of trying to restart things over, trading Trae Young, potentially trading DeAndre Hunter. So if you see him in a new situation, be on the lookout for him. But yeah, talk to me about GG Jackson.
Yeah, so GG Jackson, I mean, I don't have a ton because I don't want to go into anything crazy, but I think one of the most important things is as a rookie, he has been able to come in and let it fly in a way that I think a lot of people are just not allowed to. He's just been allowed to come.
His jumper is nice.
He's definitely an effective player, and hilariously enough, there's a lot of people who made jokes that was like, where was this at South Carolina? Like, if this guy was nearly this level of efficient at South Carolina, he would have probably been considered as a much higher draft prospect. And I mean, he was one of the top guys, or at least one of the top considered guys before the season started, and things kind of significantly changed in the season as the NCAA season played out. But the talent has always been there. The upside has always been there. But he's been able, due to circumstances, a lot of people will view this year for the Memphis Grizzlies as a lost year. And I think that is notable when you look at the fact that they didn't get to see Ja. They didn't get to see Steven Adams. They didn't get to see Desmond Bane in this group. They didn't get to see a group that has Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, and Marcus Smart all as a trio for significant time, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that this team missed out on. Zaire Williams' lack of development this year. Yes. Another one that I don't really want to get too much into, but there's a couple of bright spots here for the Memphis Grizzlies that's worth of them. One of them is Vince Williams, who has been able to really grow a spot for himself in the front court.
Great role. He's gonna be a great role player for them going forward.
Huge that he was able to step up in a big way. The other guy for me is GG Jackson. 37.3% from three-point land on 5.4 attempts per game. Again, very decent three-point shooting stretch in terms of not just his splits. There you go. Especially for, I was just about to get to that. Especially for a rookie, three-point shooting splits like those as a rookie with not necessarily the ultimate green light, but on a roster that does not necessarily have any kind of real, they don't have anything that they're really playing for this year. He is a real bright spot in terms of his development because guess what? You can make the argument that GG Jackson might, just with his overall production right now, could surpass Zaire Williams in the pecking order of prospects on this team to give real cadence to. He is a dude that I think that, I mean, at the end of the day, this Memphis Grizzlies team has been missing strong wing play for the longest, and we've tried to give it to him. Let's be honest. Yeah. The Memphis Grizzlies, we've looked at the treasure trove of young guys that they've had, draft picks and capital that they've had over the course of the season, and we've tried, and not just we in particular, but I'm saying people across the league have pinpointed different kind of strong wing players that if you drop them in the Memphis Grizzlies system, it would significantly uplift this team when you pair them with the fact that they have a John Morant, that they have a Jaren Jackson Jr. At one point, they had a Steven Adams, things of that nature, a Desmond Bane, right? I think one of the biggest guys was like, yo, what if this was the team that got OG Anunoby, right?
Yeah.
How crazy would they be? Now, I'm not saying GG Jackson is that, but what I'm saying is if he is able to bring real strong wing play to this team, something that they've been lacking for in a real way outside of maybe Dylan Brooks, who you could say was a swing of a pendulum in one direction or the other, depending on what the game was. If you can get a guy like Gigi to play at this kind of level where he's hitting threes at a high clip, not the best defender right now.
He has the tools. Definitely has the tools.
But the tools are there. There you go.
Yeah,
but the tools are there. That could be something where they could. I mean, this team is known for trying to develop in-house. I think that they've kind of they have a little bit of sour grapes on that one to an extent. I think that there's a couple of moves that they really stared down the barrel, let go away from them, and probably are regretting a little bit now. Yeah. But I think that if they're going to continue with this development in-house route, GG Jackson might be their next best project that could really unlock this team.
Literally, like, I agree with a lot of what you say. I think the biggest thing for GG Jackson is how, like, when the Memphis Grizzlies are healthy. Because their top three is, let's be honest, it's established. Ja, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr. It's been established. That's what it's going to be moving forward.
Yeah.
Where does he fit there? Because he looks very effective in a role where he is 1A, 1B option right now. He is getting a lot, and I mean a lot of attempts there. Sure, the Memphis Grizzlies are a lot, but he's getting a bunch of attempts. How is he going to fit there? If he is able to be a consistent 3-point shooter, use those tools and improve as a defender, he is the ideal guy you want at that 3 position. He will be that ideal guy. It's just that we see him effective in this sort of role. And I think that there's like players like that where you can look at a lot of players in the NBA just because, I mean, you made the NBA for a reason. You give yourself more opportunities, they're going to produce more. But is he going to be like effective in a way where he's going to be able to be that 3-man they've been looking for? Because we know what we're going to get from a John Morant, a Desmond Bane, a Jaren Jackson Jr. They're established in this league. They've been looking for that wing player for the longest time, especially a wing player with size. He feels like the next guy up. It's just that because we know he has the tools, but will this sort of impact translate to a 4th option on the starting lineup? I'm not sure. We still have to see it. I'm not sure, but I do think that GG Jackson has a lot of potential going forward for this team. And this whole in-house system that Grizzlies have, they've, again, swings and misses, man. It's been swings and misses over the last few years. But GG Jackson, there's something there. And I think that he's definitely past Zaire Williams in terms of prospects for them. But I want to see how he is as the guy next to these 3 stars.
Yeah, love GG as an overall prospect. He's going to be one of those guys that I keep an eye out on. I wasn't as crazy about him coming out of South Carolina because he felt like a guy that just played really erratic. But I think the fact that he is a project is something that gives us a lot to look forward to, considering the fact that he is getting a real project season. And there's not too many times that project guys get a full year to just do them in this kind of way. And GG Jackson is being given that opportunity. And I mean, you can tell he is thriving in it. He is definitely thriving.
He's thriving. I just hope that he can be an impactful player as when the Memphis Grizzlies turn to be a team to be a contender once again. Let's see if GG Jackson can actually solidify himself in that lineup. Yeah. But yeah, those are the TV and J Allstars. Let us know down below. Give us your under the radar sort of players. These are our 5 guys. A lot of great conversations there, but let us know down below. You agree or disagree if there's some guys that we missed? Let us know down below. Jay, it is time for the next topic, which is the NBA draft. And we have now moved on to the 2008 NBA draft. And Jay, we've had a stretch of some bad drafts. We have a banger here. We've got some future Hall of Famers. We have some, former MVPs on this list, a lot of great role players, just a lot of great people to choose from. How are you feeling about this draft going into it?
I feel real good because I think anybody can Google 2008 NBA draft and know that Jalen's got his pick already handed in, and he might as well go ahead and give it to Adam Silver right now because we have a starting 5 and a starting point guard before the segment even starts.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Let's get into it. You know what? You know how we do it. Serpentine style. Jay gets the first pick. I get the next 2. And then we keep going on Serpentine style. Jay, Turn in your pick, man. Turn in your
Come
pick.
on, man. Chicago Bulls, stand up, man. One of the youngest MVPs in NBA history, former first overall pick. Give me Derrick Rose to start at my point guard position. This guy, you listen to any old interviews that relate to talking about Derrick Rose in his prime, you would say that almost any point guard in the league didn't want to see this dude when he was at MVP status. Stop playing with me, man.
Great pickup, especially if we're getting the prime version of all these dudes. Derrick
Oh,
Rose has to be near the top of that list. But you can also make a argument for this guy, number one, and I'm obviously going to take him here. Give me the Brody. Give me
definitely.
Mr. Triple Double, Russell Westbrook. He's going to be coming into the team. And Jay, we got to reunite the UCLA duo. Russell
Mm,
Westbrook. And you're not telling me a prime Kevin Love is not going to be one of the first three picks in this draft? I don't know,
mm.
man. Prime K Love in this team. I had to get him on. Let me get the UCLA duo, Russ and K Love.
Prime Caleb was the demon, man. Double demon. Didn't know how to leave a game without getting at least 10 boards. Dude was on fire.
2020 demon at times too, man. This guy was getting boards like there's no tomorrow.
Facts. But I'm glad that you went that route by you reuniting the UCLA guys. That was one of those things that I kind of took into account for this draft was a possibility that was going to take place. And that works out perfectly because that gives me the chance for my second guy. Got to get my boy. Mr. Developmental has changed his game in a way where he went from being the best center on the block to one of the best stretch bigs in the league. Let me get Brooke Lopez with my second pick, man. Come on.
Just
Which version is the
yeah,
prime version? You tell me. You tell me. Because the
yeah,
3-and-D Brooke Lopez has been in DPOY convos.
elite,
But the
elite.
guy that was playing in New Jersey was getting in conversations with Andrew Bynum and Dwight Howard as the top big in the league.
Still the lead scorer in Brooklyn Nets history, by the
Come
way.
on, man. Put some respect on him. I think people forget that this man used to be a back to the basket demon. He used to move differently. Now, the other guy that I'm gonna get, and it's really interesting because we got to kind of put this stuff together. The other dude that I'm gonna pull is a guy that I actually referenced earlier in the league. A guy who I think would definitely be a real Swiss Army knife. A dude who I think that actually, if he came into the league in today's version of the NBA, would translate just as much as it did back when he was in the league earlier on, and has made a real long career for himself. Might be retiring soon though. Let me get Nicholas Batum.
Oh,
Let me get big man Batum, put him at the 3. He can ball handle, play next to anybody, super versatile. Come on, man. He's one of those guys that was a key cog as part of the old Portland Trailblazers teams with Wes Matthews, Damian Lillard, LaMarcus Aldridge. Peak Nicholas Batum was definitely one of the best connectors, 3-and-D wings, and one of those guys that you could trust to be able to hold the ball down the stretch and be able to initiate some offense. So I need that. I needs that.
I mean, look in the dictionary, man. If you look at Glue Guy, you're gonna see a picture of Nick Batum. He is
Come
that.
on, man.
Like,
TV talk to them. They don't know. They
yeah,
don't
they
know.
don't know. Especially that Trailblazer Batum, man. He was different before he got that big ass contract from Charlotte. He was moving
Come
different.
on. We didn't say he wasn't a finesse guy. We didn't say he wasn't a we
Yeah,
didn't say he was not a finesse guy. He still had to go chase his bread. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Come on, man.
exactly. But yeah, nice pick there, Nick Batum. But Jay, I'm glad you went Nick Batum because if you look a pick prior to Nick Batum, you're
Yeah.
gonna see my next pick, and I'm glad because because the Raptors championship banner is right behind me, gotta go with Mr. Scarves himself, Mr. Fashion, Mr. Serge Ibaka. Serge Ibaka's running my 5. Prime Ibaka, man, defensive player of the year candidate, averaging almost 3 blocks a game.
Mm.
This guy was the ultimate rim protector back in the day. You could make the argument for some other guy in this list as well. You can hook him in the second round, but I'm gonna take Prime Surge, especially with his spacing ability, underrated shooter back in his day, either super efficient mid range jumper and can even stretch it out to 3. So I'm gonna go with Serge Ibaka. Next up on my list, though, got some good guys here. Speaking of someone with a long career, man, this guy great scorer back in his day. Honestly, always like one of those reliable 3-point shooters, and you're always gonna want him on the roster because he's freaking 6'11". Give me one of the top players in this draft. Give me, and just want to double check if I'm not missing out on anybody. No, I'm gonna go Danilo Gallinari. I'm gonna go Gallinari as my next
Damn.
pick.
That's a good one, man.
Yeah.
That was literally the next guy on the list. Danilo, you can't go wrong in this draft getting Danilo, man. You just can't. DG is a guy that, again, you talk about glue guys, you talk about connectivity, you talk about the fact that he's been able to translate his game to whatever team he's on and what they need from him. He is adaptable, and he's been able to create a long career out of it when he's on the floor. Like Danilo, oh man, that was a good one. That was a very good pick.
Yeah.
Very good.
All right, Jay, you got your final 2 picks.
Yeah, man, I got 2 left, and it's like I handled the center position, so it's like I really got some wiggle room here. But what do I want to do with it? Taking Danilo was hefty, though. That's the thing. That's the thing. Here's what we're gonna do. The first guy we're gonna go ahead and get is we're gonna get Eric Gordon.
I knew that was coming. Yeah.
And we're gonna put him at the 2. I feel like his name comes up on this podcast too much, specifically from me. And
That's true as well.
I think there's a partial bias there because I used to spam him back when he was on the LA Clippers teams.
Yeah.
So I think that's a lot of where my fandom of Eric Gordon comes from. I think he's a burly guy who can be really effective on both sides of the ball because he is relatively competitive. He is a bit bigger. I guess you could say, like, for his position, things of that nature. So I like that as a guy who could play the 2 guard. And then we need a 4, which is why Danilo was so good, but TV had to get in the way.
Yeah.
And Serge was a really good pickup too. That's a really strong one. Man, who is gonna be my 4 though? That 4 spot is nasty. Nasty work.
You could go Twin Towers, man. You could go Twin Towers.
I could go Twin Towers, and as a person that I'm thinking of, I'm just wondering if the spacing is too dookie.
Get the other Brook Lopez, man. You got 3. You got Splash Mountain, Brook Lopez. You'll be good.
You might have a point. I also am just gonna show love to this guy because I think that he had a really interesting stretch when he kind of first got in the league. I might sink my draft with this. We'll see. But the 4 man I'm gonna take, give me JJ Hickson.
Oh, was not expecting to hear this name on the draft board. JJ Hickson.
Yeah.
Solid back. 2010 solid player there. Poor DeAndre Jordan's not going to get chosen. I feel bad for
and don't get me wrong, he was a guy that I thought of, but again, it comes to me, the thing about it is, and JJ Hickson wasn't like an insane player. He just had a unique skill set for the timeline that he played in. But I think the thing that you just have to ask yourself is, which version of Brook Lopez am I using? And then how does that affect whoever I use at my 4/5 position? And I feel like I want New Jersey. I actually want New Jersey Nets Brook Lopez because of just the overall dominance on the block. And that gives a guy that Derrick Rose would just be able to dump it to anytime and it's just like go to work.
Okay.
But with that being the case, I need somebody who can step a little bit away from the basket. And JJ Hickson had a midi on him. So that was kind of the work. Danilo Gallinari was the perfect pick. TV just kind of stepped in the way.
I feel you. Unfortunately, we're not going to see DeAndre Jordan on getting drafted, or Mr. Verticality himself, Roy Hibbert, as well. Shout out to him. But Jay, I've been saving this pick for the longest time.
I already know.
I can't believe he wasn't chosen.
I already know who.
One of the greatest New York Knicks of all time. From Georgetown, Patrick Ewing.
No, he's not. He's not serious. He's not serious.
What do you mean? No? I can't get this Patrick Ewing?
He's not serious.
What? I thought this guy was, no, wasn't he like the guy who went up against Jordan in the finals? No?
This guy's not serious. This guy's not serious. This guy's not serious.
Oh, I might have got my draft boards and my stuff. Huh? Okay. I guess I'll go George Hill. I'll go George Hill. That's fine.
Wow. Okay, actually, it's hilarious. Okay, hilariously enough, I knew the bit was coming. That's the sick part. I knew the bit was coming when I saw him because I was looking at it and I was like, Patrick Ewing. They didn't even put Junior. I'm like, wait a minute. Patrick Ewing at 43. I'm like, what the world? Georgetown doing all the math. I'm like, yo, what? What's going on? So I knew the bit was the podcast wouldn't have been able to end without the bit coming. We would
Yeah,
have at least had to bring it up in our honorable mentions as a
yeah.
joke. The guy who I thought you were going to take was Goron. I thought Goron was going to be the guy, but
I just think
I'm not mad at
George Hill
George Hill either, though.
works better off ball in my opinion.
Yeah,
Like
I'm not mad at George Hill though.
yeah, defensively I mean, low key, like not a bad defender at the point guard position. Lengthy. I think he's a great guy to put beside Russell Westbrook, like especially more of a like
Mm.
calm guy to even like take the load off him in terms of handling the ball. So I'm gonna end up with George Hill. A lot of this is how good this draft is. We didn't draft Goran Dragic. We didn't draft DeAndre Jordan. Shout out to Mario Chalmers, long career in the NBA as
Yeah.
well. And then you had people like DJ Augustine didn't get
OJ
chosen.
Mayo's here too.
OJ Mayo, exactly. JaVale McGee, Roy Hibbert, Ryan Anderson, Courtney Lee. There's a damn good amount of like good role players in this draft.
Damn TV, Ryan Anderson would have been good for my team. I'm thinking about it now. You know what? The reason. You know the reason why I couldn't do it though? The reason why Ryan Anderson did not click to me is, to me, I know Ryan Anderson more as the biggest bag chaser I've ever seen in my life.
But him on the the New Orleans Hornets, by the way, not
I
New Orleans
know.
Pelicans, New Orleans Hornets.
The New Orleans Hornets version of him was like one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA. It was ridiculous. And it was worse because wasn't he the 3-point shooter that they thought wasn't he the guy that the Houston Rockets thought might have been like the missing piece back with the James Harden team as like another stretch 3-point shooter?
He was still solid. He was still solid for them.
True. I mean, that was during a time where they had a couple of interesting guys come through Houston. Josh Smith was there. What's my dude? He also played for Memphis. He was a bag chaser too. He played for oh my gosh, it's gonna kill me to not get his name before the end of the pod. I'll figure it out at some point. But yeah, there's another dude. There was another guy that was like definitely a big bag chaser that played for Houston.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, like, Ryan Anderson, definitely a choice there. There's a lot of good role players here. But yeah, that is the draft completed. Jay, go through your starting five from the 2008 draft.
All right, man. So my 2008 NBA draft starting five is Derrick Rose at the 1, Eric Gordon at the 2, Nicholas Batum at the 3, J.J. Hickson at the 4, and Brook Lopez at the 5.
Like that team a lot. For myself, I got Russell Westbrook running the 1, George Hill at the 2, Danilo Gallinari at the 3, Kevin Love running my 4, and Serge Ibaka running the 5. Jay, who at the look at both these teams, are you feeling good about yours?
Yeah, I mean, hey, any team with Derrick Rose in his prime is a good team to me.
100%. Do let us know down below what you guys think. Who's better? Which team is better? My team or Jay? Let us know down below. Jay, we've reached the final segment of the show, and it's time for the NBA quiz. And like we mentioned, the 3-part series has reached its finale as we have the final 10 cards of the NBA pack. The last pack, if you haven't seen the last cards from the packs, we got some two very interesting ones. We've got a Wemby rookie card. We've got the up next Jordan Hawkins card too, which is super cool. Mm-hmm. So make sure to check out the other cards we had in the rest of the packs from the previous episodes. But we have the final 10 cards right over here. Let us see if Jay can name these next 10 cards in my pack. So, all right, Jay, you gotta give me with the first one here. Many people believe he should be a top 2 MVP candidate, but let's be honest, they're not gonna give it to an 8 seed. They're not going to give an MVP to an 8 seed.
It should be a top 2.
He has top 2 numbers, potentially number 1, like best. Like he has probably the best numbers in the league. It's just tough that he's on an 8th place team right now.
Is this Joel?
Nope, not Joel.
KD.
Think West. You think you're missing think of the top MVP candidates. He's number 7. Maybe I think he's number 7 he's number 7 right now, but he's tied for 8th.
The team is tied for 8th, or he's 8th.
No, the team is tied for 8th. He's probably a top 3 MVP candidate, but they're not gonna give it to someone who's in the play-in.
Oh damn! Is this Luka?
Luka Doncic. Yeah.
Damn, that's tough. I mean, yeah, he definitely should be in the convo. For
Yeah,
sure.
Luka Doncic. All
Yeah.
right, next card. Great. I don't know how to describe this guy. Uh,
Oh, okay. Love
it's,
those.
it's, it's a rookie. It's a rookie.
Okay.
Um,
Done good with
guard for the
those.
Charlotte Hornets. Guard for the Charlotte Hornets. If you might be good with colleges, Jay. He came out of Arkansas. Yeah, 6'5" guy from
Dang, I know this team. I know this team too.
he. I mean, he's like a guard. Very basic name. Very basic name. If you think of JR's last name, JR's last name.
He plays for the Hornets.
Yes.
Dang. He's. Oh, is this this is I forgot he was a rookie for a second because he just hasn't played like that. This is Nick Smith
Yeah.
Jr.
Nick Smith Jr. right over here. Yep.
Loved him going into Arkansas, man. Charlotte, man, get it together. Get it together, man. I love that guy.
One of the worst things you could do to a career. Start them off in Charlotte. All
Yeah,
right.
for
Next
real.
card. Oh boy. Another weirdly throwback card, but he played here last year, so kind of weird. But he's a key role player for the Philadelphia 76ers right now. But this is like a card that he played for this team last year, and he was averaging 20 points a game, and literally no one knew. But he's a key role player for the Philadelphia 76ers.
Kelly Oubre.
Kelly Oubre.
Come on, man. I know my guy. Come on, man.
Yes, sir.
Sneaky season for Charlotte. Sneaky season.
This guy averaged like 20.7 points a game and ended up signing a minimum deal the next year. Really weird.
Man, if he hadn't got hit by that car, he would have been one of the sneakiest pickups in the league earlier, where he was playing earlier this season. Let's stop playing. Come on, man. Kelly was one of those dudes to kick off the year. So
I know. Shout out to him. Shout out to Dylan Brooks as well. We were talking about the Matt at the beginning of the year.
Right. Come on, bro. What?
Yeah. Sticking Philly. This guy's very likely to win an award this year.
Tyrese Maxey.
Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah. I ain't gonna lie, man. I'm still it's still Kobe over everybody. Let's stop playing. But at the end of the day, Tyrese Maxey for that MIP award, he's gonna give Kobe a real run for his money in the votes.
For real, for real. All right, man. Next guy up, an NBA champion twice in this decade, in the 2020s, but for two different teams. Two different teams. And actually, he was the starting two guard for both of these teams. He played a key role.
For an NBA championship team in the last 4 years?
Yes, he's won two championships for two different teams, and he's played a key role for both.
Oh man, one of the most switchable players in the league, one of the most dynamic Swiss Army knives. Come on, man, this is KCP. Shout out my dog. Come on, man. Can we look back at the fact that KCP low-key got traded for a box of bags that had chips in the bags? Like, come on, man. Ended up turning into a dude who was able to really put in work for Denver. Like, and that was not even including the Lakers tenure. Shout out to KCP, man. That trade looks like one of the biggest steals in NBA history, low-key.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna hold you.
People talk about the pickup of Aaron Gordon being massive for the Denver Nuggets. I think KCP is like right up there for like
definitely got to be in the conversation.
Yeah, he was a massive pickup and a big reason why they won last year as well. That spacing is so key for that team. All right. Did I get the same card? I think I might have got the same card twice in the pack. We talked about him last time. Again, this is like a throwback card, but he only played for this team like just last year. One of the best point guards in the league.
Is Dame again?
It's the same Dame card, but
it's the same one. Oh well, that's how pack and plays go, man. That's how pack and plays go.
Hey man, they gave me two. Not even a Milwaukee Buck Dame. They gave me two Portland Dames. Like that's tough. Man. All right, man. Next one. All right, next player. Considered one of the best young guards in the league. Not really talked about this year because of injuries, but I still think like people are underrating his season.
There's a couple guys that probably qualifies as like LaMelo Ball.
Now LaMelo.
Now LaMelo. Hmm.
Honestly, this guy's rookie season was so bad. People like already gave up on him, but he ended up being an all-star a couple years later.
Trey Young?
Not Trey Young.
What to say? Wait. Not Anthony Simons because he didn't become one. Huh.
He's like the perfect like example of someone who you don't give up on after the first year. Like he was like not good. I was like he was like
Oh. This is D Fox, right?
not D Fox.
No. Oh man. Okay.
Stay in the it's in the East player.
Oh, so it's in the East. Okay, because
Yeah,
D
East.
Fox is king. So
Yeah, he's in the East.
um, he's in the East, and he made an All Star team after having
Last
a
season.
really bad. He made an All Star team last season.
Yeah,
After
yeah,
was
but
he in the East last season?
yes, he's still on his rookie contract. He's like young still,
Oh yeah. Okay.
still young.
Dang. Who's still in the rookie
Was
contract?
injured at the beginning of the season. That's why he didn't get as much love this year. Kind of like struggled coming off the injury, but has definitely picked up his play again recently.
No, if this is who I think of you talking about, he kind of been struggling like with injuries the whole time. Is this DG?
It's DG.
Yeah. That's unfortunately just the calling card of his career right now. It's just like when he's healthy, he's a demon. But he's off the floor a lot. He had a
Yeah,
facial contusion earlier this
face
year. Like, what the
contusion. Yeah,
hell?
exactly,
Like, this
exactly.
dude can't catch a break
I know.
sometimes.
He is so important for the Cavs to make a deep run, especially because of his playmaking as well. They need him back in the playoffs. Next guy up. Oh man, this guy was in contention for probably a TVA All Star. This guy is low key. Would be so much better if he was on a different team, but just because he's on the like arguably the best team in the West, he's not getting as much love.
Hmm.
Definitely has picked
Hmm.
up his play recently. Second year man, he was a top candidate for Rookie of the Year last year. Absolutely love watching this man play. He's super underrated. If you know, I'm going to see a game on Friday. I'm gonna enjoy seeing this guy play.
But he doesn't. He was in contention for Rookie of the Year, top West teams. Because I'm thinking about who's at the top of the West. The Thunder at the top of the West, the Nuggets at the top of the West, and the Timberwolves at the top of the West. Timberwolves really don't have any rookies right now. It's like kicking.
He's a
So
second
it's
year guy
not
right now.
them.
He's a second year guy right now.
Oh, he's second year. Okay, he's second year now. But he was in contention. But it still can't be a Timberwolf because I don't think anybody on the
No,
Timberwolves was in
not
there.
Timberwolf, not Timberwolf. Think of those other. Think of the other two teams then. If it's not the Timberwolves,
Wait, is this really? Is this real? Because I think part of it is me overthinking it. Is this Jalen Williams?
J Dub.
Oh, okay. I was overthinking it. Because in my mind, a JNTV All Star for this guy, it's almost hard to make him that kind of caliber
Yeah,
dude
no,
because
I
I
know.
feel like he's caught so much fire as of late. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
But
no,
I
he.
completely agree with you with him being rookie of the year contention last year. That's definite. I completely agree. Remember, I think I was one of the people who made an argument that maybe that conversation should be a little bit longer in terms of the one between
Yeah,
him and Paulo. So I
yeah,
agree with that. But yeah, he's just caught so much buzz this year. I'm glad people are catching on though, because
yeah.
out of all these little 3-and-D wing guys that everybody keeps saying could develop into like a Kawhi Leonard, Jimmy Butler type,
J
J
Dub.
Dub is that. Like, turn on the J Dub film and tell me you don't see Jimmy Butler in that dude. That guy is up
He's
next. He might
he's
be
up
here
next.
now.
No, he's here. No, he's here.
Yeah, he
It's
might be here
unfair.
now.
It's unfair that they got him and Chet in the same draft. How the did you let that happen?
Choked. And craziest part, they picked Usman Jang first.
No, it was in between them. So like, Usman Jeng was like, like 10th or something like
No,
that.
no, I'm saying first out of
Yeah,
between him and
yeah,
J Dub. They
okay,
took
yeah,
now Usman Jang. There's like a big backstory thing around it where they said that they took Usman Jang with that pick because it was a pick from a different team. So
yeah,
just in case there were any like weird convey issues or anything like that, they
yeah,
wanted to take the guy that like there was more of like a project. There was a little
yeah,
bit more risk, and then take J Dub with their actual pick.
Yeah.
So crazy front office stuff taking place across the board with picking J-Dub, but he's turned out to be everything they've wanted and then some. And by the way, has a brother in the upcoming draft that could be
Yes, he
considered one of the
does.
top draft picks
Yes,
in
he
this
does.
upcoming class. Don't sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, but man, J-Dub is that guy, man. He is so freaking good. Him, Chet, and like Shea, and the fact they have this like treasure trove of draft picks feels unfair for the Thunder. They better not F this up. They better not F this up.
They're not,
All
and
right.
apparently, I'm already seeing news that says they might be targeting guys like Paul George in free agency. I mean,
Woo!
who knows what this team is looking
What's
to
next?
do after this postseason, and it's going to be fun just to see these guys in the postseason. Might mess around, mess around, be the top seed in the Western Conference by the time it's all said and done.
Honestly.
Not too many games left.
Yeah. Yo, let's push our SGA for MVP narrative, bro. It's gonna help our
Team.
narrative. It's gonna help our narrative. All right, man. Next guy. Started off the season on the worst team in basketball at the time. Like think of like the worst team. And
I'm gonna
imagine
stop you there, TV. I'm gonna stop you there. I already know who it is because it's not too many guys you get to see on the worst teams in basketball. This better be Marvin Bagley. Come on, man. I'm here. Come on, TV. I do this, TV.
Yes, sir.
Come on, man. It's not too many worst teams in basketball, man.
No, I was gonna say he got traded from like the worst team in basketball to the worst team in basketball, bro.
Come on, TV. It's not too many guys who can make lateral movements at the bottom of the standings, TV. Come on, man. Come on, man. The minute you said worst teams in the league, I said, he's cooked. He's cooked. Come on, man.
That's great. That was great. Marvin Bagley, man.
Come on, man.
Always the guy who got chosen. Out of all the guys in that top five, man, him being chosen over Luka was the biggest crime of them all. The biggest crime of them all.
Insane.
Yeah, exactly. Last guy though, probably in contention for another award. He's been absolutely killer for them, like ever since he's joined them last year, and was like, basically, he's on a team where they're like fighting to stay in the top 6, but like he's like probably been like they're probably their third best scorer. He's probably gonna win an award because of his scoring ability. He has a flamethrower, and he's crazy athletic too. You're not gonna find many of these in the league.
You gotta end on a 1 of 1. I think this has to be Malik Monk.
It is Malik Monk.
Come on, man. Come on, man.
Look, man, one of the best bunnies in the league, one of the best 3-point shooters in the league, and it's probably up next to win 6th Man of the Year. Seriously. So, shout out to Malik Monk. That is the end of the pack. We had some pretty good ones. We got a Luka in there. We got a Wemby. We got a LeBron in there. Great pack overall. And that is the end of this quiz series. Jay, we have reached the end of an episode. By the way, if you have any other quizzes that you want us to do, let us know down below. But Jay, we've reached the end of another fantastic episode. Thank you guys for watching. What do you have to tell these people before we sign out?
TV, first thing, I told you guys I couldn't let the podcast end if I couldn't remember the other dude from the Houston Rockets that played for Memphis. The dude's name, the bag chaser of the podcast, is Chandler Parsons. If you know, you know.
Shout out to Jay.
Come on, man. Not only should you check his basketball reference to see that he low-key was a decent player, but check that boy's spot track. That man made some paper and missed a lot of playing time when he was playing those seasons. Sorry, that was just one of those things I could not let the podcast end without remembering that man's name. I don't like making references without making sure I do my backstory. So made sure to get that one handled. But in terms of the podcast itself, man, like we said beforehand, if you guys didn't check out the last episode, we already did. We did most disappointing players for us this year. We both shared some interesting starting fives for that group. As well as obviously the second part of what was a 3-part quiz for the basketball cards. A lot of other nuanced conversations.
The jelly bean thing happened last episode.
Oh man, yeah, the jelly bean forfeit. That actually didn't go as bad as we thought it was gonna go. But remember, if you guys can make suggestions on TikTok and Instagram, letting us know if there's any other potential things that me and TV could do against each other as a way to use up more of those Bean Boozled beans, because we got a lot of them. Each of us spent like $10 on those packs, and I don't think we both want to just throw them in the trash or let them go bad. So give us a reason to go ahead and use them. I'm sure it won't be a fun experience, but it'll be a fun experience. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So definitely a lot from that last episode. It was a jam-packed episode. We typically don't go as long as we did that one. This one actually was a little bit longer too.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're not double recording every single week, but there's going to be a lot more double uploads as we get closer to the postseason. Obviously, when postseason basketball kicks off, that is when things really go into hyperdrive. And yeah, the podcast is fully locked in. Content as always. Double upload for you guys this week. So hope you guys have a nice car ride to work.
Yeah, 100%. Another great episode. And of course, we're going to be back with you next week and talking about a lot more of this stuff. So be on the lookout for that. And the NBA is always churning, man. And we're closer and closer to NBA playoff season. There's going to be a lot of stuff to talk about. We might even have to make our own All-NBA team, the legit All-NBA teams pretty soon. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, thank you guys for watching this episode. Thank you again. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you show love on all the podcast networks. Subscribe, hit the like button, hit the bell on YouTube. Show love to hit your free throws on the daily content and TikTok and Instagram, and of course our personal pages that can be found down below as well. But yeah, another great episode. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you all have a fantastic day. Take it easy, guys. Peace.